Okay, let's unpack this. We are about to walk into one of the biggest, most complex, and frankly, most fiercely debated territories in the entire history of human thought.
That's not an exaggeration either.
No, not at all. We talk a lot on the show about mysteries. You know, scientific anomalies, historical puzzles, things that make you sort of stop and think.
Right.
But today we are looking at the mystery, the biblical mystery, that really it underpins the entire narrative of history.
It really is the ultimate question, isn't it? I mean, if we're honest, if you strip away all the academic jargon and the big theological words, it's the question that keeps people up at night. It's the tension that sits right at the center of almost every theological debate, and I would say every cry for justice.
Exactly. And to put it bluntly, because we need to set the stakes here from the get-go. If God is sovereign, if he's actually in charge,
which is the baseline assumption.
Right. And if the cross was this massive cosmic victory that Christians claim it was, then why are we still locking our doors at night?
Yeah. Why is there still war? Why is there cancer?
Why wasn't the bad guy just destroyed immediately, right at the beginning? Just poof, gone.
That is the core paradox, and that's what we're digging into. We're talking about what you could call the chronology of destruction.
I like that title.
And I want to be really clear right from the start. We aren't just talking about the end of the world. This isn't just a Left Behind deep dive where we try to map out the apocalypse with charts and graphs.
No.
We are mapping the career of the adversary, Satan, from his origin, through his rebellion, to his imprisonment, and then finally to his ultimate sentence.
It's like a criminal profile, but on a cosmic scale.
Exactly.
We are looking at the rap sheet of the ultimate defendant. And here's the thing. Most of us, you know, we know the bookends. We know the beginning, the Garden of Eden, the snake, the forbidden fruit.
That's familiar territory.
And we know the end, lake of fire. We've heard that phrase. But the middle.
The middle is where it gets incredibly messy.
The middle is where scholars practically come to blows. Specifically, the timing of it all. Is he in prison now? Is he roaming free? When does the timeline shift?
And, you know, that isn't just about timelines or making charts for a Sunday school wall.
Not at all.
It's about the very nature of justice. It's about the nature of human depravity. I mean, it changes how you view the morning news.
How so?
Well, if you think the enemy's running free right now, you interpret a war one way. If you think he's currently bound, you have to interpret that same war very, very differently.
So here is the roadmap for today. We are going to dig into the texts Ezekiel, Isaiah, Revelation, and we are going to look at the different ways people have tried to solve this puzzle.
The main theories.
Exactly. And I want to say this early on. Stay with us until the very end. Because the most revealing perspective, the one that explains why he has to be released one last time, it comes later in the discussion, and it completely changed how I view the whole concept of the end times.
It's a crucial piece of the puzzle that often gets missed because people get so focused on, you know, the fire and brimstone.
Right.
And actually, before we dive in, let us know early on in the comments, or just, you know, ask yourself right now, what have you always believed? When you look at the world, do you see a devil who is roaming free, doing whatever he wants, or do you see an enemy who is currently on a leash?
That is a great question to keep in the back of your mind as we go. Is he a roaring lion running wild, or is he a chained dog? Let's find out.
Let's do it.
So, section 1, the origin of the defendant. Before we can talk about how he ends, we have to figure out how he started. Because, and I found this really interesting in the research, there is this pervasive cultural idea that the devil is the anti-God.
Right, the dualistic view. Like you have light and dark, yin and yang, God and Satan.
Exactly. Two equal heavyweights stepping into the ring for a title fight.
But the source material, specifically the Hebrew texts, it just shuts that down immediately. The devil isn't the opposite of God. He's a product of God. He's a creature.
And that is the most critical distinction to make right at the start, isn't it?
It's everything. If he is created, he is contingent. He relies on God for his very existence, which means the power dynamic is infinitely lopsided.
It's not a fair fight.
It was never a fight. But we have to address the origin problem, because you won't find a chapter in Genesis called the creation of Satan. It's not there.
No, he just shows up in Genesis 3 as the serpent. He's already bad. He's already lying. So we have to go elsewhere to find the backstory.
And this is where we get into those two controversial texts we prepped, Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14.
The famous double reference prophecies.
Double reference is a very polite way of saying confusing as hell for the uninitiated.
It is a bit of a mind bender.
Because on the surface, Ezekiel is talking to the king of Tyre, a human guy, and Isaiah is roasting the king of Babylon. But then the language just shifts. It breaks the ceiling of what is possible for a human being. It goes off the rails. It transcends the historical figure it's supposedly talking about.
Let's look at Ezekiel 28. I want to read a bit of this because the visual is just insane. The prophet is addressing the king of Tyre, telling him he's going to die. Standard doom and gloom prophecy.
Pretty standard for Ezekiel.
But then, in verse 12, the camera zooms out. It says, "You were the signet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty."
And you should just pause on that word perfection.
Yeah.
That is a word that is rarely, if ever, applied to humans in the Hebrew Bible.
That's a good point. And then verse 13, "You were in Eden, the garden of God."
Okay, stop right there.
Yeah. I checked the history books. The king of Tyre was a Phoenician ruler, a guy named Ethbal III, around 580 BC. He was definitely not in the Garden of Eden.
Unless he had a very, very advanced travel agent, no. And that's the clue.
It has to be.
The text is using the human king as a foreground object, like a lens, to describe the spiritual power standing behind him. The prophet is looking through the human ruler to the spiritual ruler influencing him.
And look at the attire description. It's wild.
It reads like a jewelry catalog.
It really does. Every precious stone was your covering. Sardius, topaz, diamond, beryl, onyx, jasper. It goes on. And then it says, "On the day that you were created, they were prepared." Again, created, not born.
And then comes the title. This is the smoking gun, really, verse 14. "You were an anointed guardian cherub."
Okay, let's pause on cherub, because I think most of us, we hear that word and we think of a fat baby with wings on a Valentine's card holding a little harp.
Right, the little Cupid figure.
Yeah.
That is a Renaissance invention. It's cute, but it's not biblical.
Not even close.
In the biblical ancient Near East context, a cherub, or keruv, is a terrifying creature.
Terrifying is the right word.
These are the guardians of the throne. They are massive, multi-faced, chimera-like beings that just radiate power. They aren't cute. They are the security detail of the Almighty. They guard the holiness of God.
So this entity, this defendant, he started as the head of security.
The anointed guardian cherub. The text suggests he was the highest-ranking creature in the entire administration. He had proximity. He walked among the stones of fire, which is likely imagery for the very presence of God himself.
So he was arguably the most beautiful, most powerful being God ever made.
It seems so.
Which makes the motive for the crime so much harder to grasp. You're at the top of the pyramid, you're perfect, you're covered in diamonds, you hang out with God. What went wrong?
Verse 17 gives us the diagnosis. Your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor.
It's narcissism, pure and simple.
It is, but it's a specific kind of narcissism. He started to believe that the light he was reflecting was actually originating from him. He forgot he was the moon and thought he was the sun.
That's a killer analogy. He started reading his own press clippings, and Isaiah 14 gives us the internal monologue of that switch, doesn't it? The famous I wills.
The 5 I wills. It's the manifesto of the rebellion. It's the mission statement.
I have them here, and what strikes me is the verticality of it. It's all about going up. I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the Mount of Assembly. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds.
And then the climax, the final one.
I will make myself like the Most High.
See, he doesn't want to destroy God.
No, he wants to be God. He wants the chair.
He wants the autonomy. He wants to be the reference point for good and evil. He doesn't want to serve. He wants to be served. And that right there is the origin of the adversary. It wasn't a monster created in a lab. It was a masterpiece that became obsessed with itself.
Which, if we are being honest, is a pretty uncomfortable mirror for the human condition, too. We all have a little bit of that I will ascend in us.
It is the archetype of all sin. Every sin is just a mini version of I will make myself like the Most High. It's saying, my way is better. I know better than God.
So the rebellion happens. He is cast down and notice, not destroyed, but cast out of that immediate position. Fast forward to the Garden of Eden, the human fall. We have the snake tempting Adam and Eve, and then we get the first verdict. This is Genesis 3.15.
The Protoevangelium, that's a theological term. It literally means the first gospel, the first whisper of good news.
And it's framed as a war, right? It's not a peace treaty. It's not a negotiation.
It is a declaration of total war. God speaks directly to the serpent and says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed.
The seed of the woman being a prophecy about the Messiah, about Jesus.
Correct. And then comes the description of the injury. This is so important. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel.
Okay, let's pause on that imagery for a second. A crushed head versus a struck heel.
I mean, just think about the physiology of it. A strike to the heel is painful. It can be debilitating for sure. It makes you limp.
It's not fatal.
No. But a crushed head, that is fatal. That is the end of the line, checkmate.
So right there, on page 3 of the Bible, the end is already written, the outcome is announced.
The destruction was decreed the moment the rebellion began. The outcome was never in doubt. It was just a matter of time.
I want to ask you, listening, to just think about that for a second. That imagery, a crushed head versus a struck heel, does that match how you see the battle between good and evil in your own life or in the world? Or does it feel more like an equal fight to you?
That's a great question.
Because if you're looking at Genesis 3.15, it's not an equal fight, not even close. One guy gets a limp, the other guy gets a funeral.
That's a powerful way to put it. But, and this brings us right to our next section, if the head crushing was promised back then, when did it actually happen? Because the snake slithers away from the garden. He's not dead yet.
Right. Because we move from the garden to the cross. This is section 2, the D-Day, the turning point.
We have to talk about the crucifixion. Because in the Christian worldview, this is where the hammer drops.
Right.
But it's complex.
Well, yeah, because if the head was crushed at the cross, why are we still dealing with this? Why are we still fighting? Why does evil still seem so powerful?
And this introduces what theologians call the already and not yet paradox. It is the single most important concept for understanding biblical eschatology, or the study of the end times.
Already and not yet. Okay, break that down for us.
Think of it like a war. A common analogy used by theologians is World War II. When the Allies landed on Normandy, that's D-Day, and they breached the Atlantic Wall, military historians often say the war was effectively won that day.
Okay.
The outcome was decided. The Nazis could not recover from that strategic breach. That's the already. The victory is secured.
But the fighting didn't stop on D-Day. The war didn't end in June of 1944.
No. In fact, some of the fiercest, bloodiest fighting happened afterwards. You had the Battle of the Bulge, the long, hard march to Berlin. That took almost another year. That is the not yet.
So the victory is secured, strategic superiority is established, but the enemy is still active, still dangerous, and refusing to surrender.
Precisely. He's a defeated foe, but he hasn't been completely mopped up yet.
So let's look at the D-Day evidence in the text. Colossians 2.15 is the go-to verse here, I think.
It's a big one. He disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them in him.
Disarmed. That's a strong word. It's a military term.
And then you have Hebrews 2.14, which says that through death, he might destroy the one who has the power of death.
Okay, now we need a definition break, because if I look around, death still happens.
It certainly does.
So destroy sounds like, well, gone. Poof. Obliterated.
And this is where the original language is so helpful. The Greek word there is katargish, and it doesn't mean annihilated or erased from existence. Not yet, anyway. It means rendered inoperative, stripped of power, or made of no effect.
So it's a legal term. It's about authority.
Very much so. It's like stripping a general of his rank and his authority. He might still have a gun, he might still be shouting orders to his troops, but legally, he has no standing. He is no longer the legitimate ruler.
He's a rogue agent, a guerrilla fighter in the jungle who refuses to believe the war is over.
Exactly. And that explains the tension we feel. We live in the not yet. We live in that gap between D-Day and V-Day, Victory Day.
And the not yet is messy. I mean, just look at the titles the enemy still holds in the New Testament after the cross. You've got a 1 Peter 5.8, the roaring lion.
Seeking someone to devour. That implies hunger. It implies a real physical threat. He is dangerous. You don't go play with a lion just because he's technically been defeated.
Right. Then you have 2 Corinthians 4.4. He's called the God of this age.
That one is all about influence, ideology. He blinds the minds of unbelievers. He controls the cultural currents, the philosophies, the propaganda.
The spirit of the age.
Yes. And finally, Revelation 12.10, the accuser.
The legal adversary.
He stands in the courtroom of heaven and he points out your guilt. But, and here's the beauty of the cross, the accuser has no case.
Because the penalty has been paid.
Exactly. His primary weapon was sin and the condemnation it brings. The cross took that weapon away.
So he's a lion with no teeth, or a lawyer with no evidence.
A lawyer with no evidence, but who is very, very good at convincing you that you're still guilty. Or a guerrilla fighter who knows he's lost the war but wants to take as many people down with him as possible before the end.
That is a chilling image. A wounded animal is often the most dangerous kind.
Precisely. He has nothing left to lose.
I want to pause here for a second. If this distinction between defeated and destroyed, this already not yet idea is clicking for you, maybe hit the like button or just take a mental note.
It's a big concept.
It is, but for me, that solves so much of the confusion. He's defeated, but he's not gone. Which leads us directly to the biggest controversy in this whole discussion.
The big one.
If he is defeated, where is he right now?
Oh boy.
Section 3. The elephant in the room. The Millennium.
The famous 1,000 years. Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 3.
Let me set the scene for you. The Apostle John sees an angel coming down from heaven. He has a key to the abyss and a great chain. He seizes the dragon, binds him for 1,000 years, throws him in the pit, shuts it, and seals it.
And the stated purpose is very specific. It says he's sealed up to keep him from deceiving the nations any longer.
Okay, so simple, right? He's in a pit, he's chained up. But this is where the theological fight breaks out. Because there are 3 main ways to read this, and we aren't going to declare a winner today, but we need to really understand the options because they've changed the timeline completely.
Right. We have premillennialism, amillennialism, and postmillennialism. The 3 big ones.
Let's break them down, but I want to grill you on the logic of each one. Let's start with premillennialism. This is probably what a lot of our listeners have heard in movies or popular books like the Left Behind series.
The premillennial view takes the text very literally. The timeline is this. Jesus returns first, then he binds Satan. Then there is a literal 1,000-year period on earth, a golden age where Jesus rules physically from Jerusalem, and then after that 1,000 years, Satan is released for a short time.
So in this view, to be clear, Satan is not bound right now.
Correct. In the premillennial view, he is currently the god of this age, roaming free, deceiving the nations. The binding is a future event that happens at Christ's second coming.
Which, to be honest, just looking at the news, that feels intuitively correct.
It has a strong appeal to experience.
It really does. It doesn't look like he's bound right now. We have genocide, we have sex trafficking, we have massive corruption and deception on a global scale. It feels like the dragon is very much out of the pit.
And that is the strongest argument for the premillennial view. The state of the world seems to contradict the idea of a bound Satan. They look at the chain and say, if he's chained, it's a paper chain.
Okay, but then you have amillennialism, and amillennial means no millennium, right?
It's a bit of a misnomer. It's a confusing name. It means no literal future millennium on Earth.
So what do they believe it is?
They believe the millennium is now. It's symbolic. It represents the church age, the time period between the resurrection of Jesus and his eventual return.
So wait, if the millennium is now, then that means they believe Satan is bound now, at this moment.
Yes. They believe the binding happened at the cross and the resurrection.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here, pun totally intended. If he is bound right now, that is a very, very loose chain. I mean, wars, genocide, deception. How can anyone argue he's bound? Is the amillennialist just ignoring reality?
And that is the big hurdle for that view. It's the first question everyone asks. But the amillennialist points to the specific language of the restriction in Revelation.
Go on.
The text doesn't say he is bound from doing anything. It doesn't say he is bound from causing pain or chaos or tempting individuals. It says he is bound so that he might not deceive the nation.
Deceive the nations. Okay, parse that for us. What's the significance?
Think about the world before Christ. The knowledge of the true God was largely confined to one tiny strip of land, Israel. The rest of the nations, the Gentiles, were in spiritual darkness. They were worshiping idols. They were, in a word, deceived.
Okay.
But after the cross and after the Great Commission to go into all the world, what happened?
The gospel went global.
Exploded. The gospel exploded into every nation, tribe, and tongue. Rome, Ethiopia, Asia, eventually the Americas. The amillennialist argues that this mass exodus from paganism to the truth would be impossible if Satan still had the power to completely blind the nations as a whole.
So it's a specific kind of power that's been curtailed.
Yes. They cite Matthew 12:29, where Jesus talks about having to bind the strong man before you can plunder his house.
So they're saying Jesus bound Satan at the cross so that the church could plunder the nations, that is, rescue people from his grip.
Exactly. It's a specific binding. I've heard the analogy of putting a muzzle on a dog. It can't bite anymore, even if it can still bark and run around and cause trouble. It's a leash that prevents him from stopping the worldwide spread of the gospel, even if he can still cause immense chaos in other ways.
Okay, I can see the logic there. It's about the success of the mission, not the absence of evil.
Right. And then, briefly, you have postmillennialism.
The optimists of the bunch.
Very much so. They believe the binding is the gradual reduction of Satan's power as the kingdom of God expands. They see a future golden age where the world gets better and better through the spread of the gospel before Jesus returns.
So they see the timeline as an upward slope of progress.
Yes. Whereas premillennialism often sees a downward slope until Jesus comes back to rescue us, and amillennialism sees a parallel struggle between good and evil until the end. Postmillennialists believe the church will essentially Christianize the world over time, leading to this golden age.
It is fascinating how the same few verses can yield such completely different maps of reality.
It is.
And honestly, depending on the day of the week, I find myself shifting between them. Some days the world looks like it's getting better and I feel a bit post-mill. Other days it looks like it's burning down and I'm very pre-mill.
That's the tension of history we live in. And I'd love to ask the listener, which side makes more sense to you? Do you see a literal 1,000-year reign coming in the future? Or do you think we are living in the kingdom age right now and the binding is a spiritual reality? It's a tough one.
It really is. Drop a comment, literal or symbolic. I'm genuinely curious where people land on this. But here's where it gets really weird. Regardless of which view you pick, the story doesn't end with him in the pit.
No. And this is the part that shocks people. This is the plot twist nobody expects.
Section 4. The release and the final rebellion. Revelation 20.3 says, and I quote, "After that, he must be set free for a short time."
The Greek word there is day. It means it is necessary. It is a divine compulsion. It's part of the plan. It has to happen.
And why? I mean, seriously, why? If God has him in the pit, whether that's a literal pit or a spiritual restraint, why let him out? Why not just double lock the door and throw away the key? It feels like a villain escaping in a movie sequel, but here, God is the one opening the cell door.
And this brings us back to that deep why we teased at the beginning of the deep dive. The consensus among theologians across the different millennial views is that this release isn't for Satan's benefit.
Obviously not.
It's for ours. Or rather, it's a final proof regarding us, regarding humanity.
Yeah, so explain that.
Think about the excuses humanity has made throughout history. I wouldn't sin if my environment was better. I wouldn't rebel if I had better government. I wouldn't be evil if I didn't have bad influences. It's society's fault.
Right. We blame our circumstances. We blame the system. We blame everything but ourselves.
Well, consider the scenario. In the premillennial view, which is the most vivid picture, you have humanity living for 1,000 years under the perfect, visible reign of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
No war.
Yeah.
Perfect justice. No poverty. No disease. It's paradise restored on earth. And yet,
the moment the tempter is released.
Revelation 20, verse 8 says he goes out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, and gathers them for battle. And the number of them is like the sand of the sea.
That is terrifying. After 1,000 years of literal paradise, the human heart is still ready to rebel.
Exactly. It proves that a perfect environment doesn't cure a sinful heart. It justifies God's final judgment. It shows that rebellion isn't just about being tricked or having a bad day. It's about a deep-seated desire in the human heart to overthrow God.
Wow. Even with Jesus sitting on a physical throne in Jerusalem, people will still choose the snake if given the chance.
So the release is the final exhibit in the court case against human pride. It proves we are the problem, not just the environment we're in.
Yes. It validates the final judgment. It removes every last excuse from the table.
And notice the battle itself. We call it the Battle of Gog and Magog.
It sounds epic. You expect this huge Lord of the Rings style siege. The armies surround the camp of the saints, the beloved city. They are ready to attack. The tension is building.
And then what happens?
Verse 9, but fire came down from heaven and devoured them.
That's it.
That's it. One sentence.
No sword fight, no duel between good and evil, no final monologue.
Nothing. It is anticlimactic by design.
Why?
To show the absolute, overwhelming disparity in power. The moment God decides it's over, it's over. Satan doesn't even put up a fight. He gathers the armies, and God just hits the delete button.
Sovereignty is absolute. The war was never a match between equals. Never. We sometimes think of Armageddon as this 50-50 toss-up, like a cosmic boxing match. It's not. It's a gnat fighting a supernova.
That's a great image. Microhook here. Satan gathers the world for war, and God answers with a sentence, not a soldier. That leads us to the final sentence.
The end of the line, the final stop.
Section 5, the final verdict. We've had the prison, we've had the parole, we've had the final rebellion, now we have the destination. Revelation 20, verse 10.
And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever.
Okay, we need to clarify the geography here, so to speak. We hear hell, Hades, lake of fire. Are these all the same place?
No, and the distinction is important for understanding the timeline. In the text, Sheol, in the Hebrew Old Testament, or Hades in the Greek New Testament, is generally understood as the temporary holding place of the dead. It's like the county jail before the final trial.
So it's a holding cell, like the abyss where Satan was bound.
Exactly. But the lake of fire, that's the federal penitentiary. That is Gehenna. That is the permanent destination. In fact, later in Revelation, it says that death and Hades themselves were thrown into the lake of fire.
So the temporary jail is thrown into the permanent fire.
Correct. It's the final disposal of evil and all of its effects. Now, notice who is already there when the devil arrives.
The beast and the false prophet?
Right. And if you take the premillennial view, the beast and false prophet were thrown in there before the millennium.
So they've been in the lake of fire for 1,000 years when Satan finally shows up.
Which is a key argument used by those who believe in eternal conscious torment.
How so?
They argue that since the beast and false prophet are still there 1,000 years later, they weren't annihilated. They're still existing, still conscious, and still under judgment.
And that brings us to the final big debate. The nature of the punishment itself. Is it eternal torment or is it annihilation?
This is a very sensitive topic, but we need to present the arguments because they shape how we view God's ultimate justice. The traditional view relies on that phrase we just read, tormented day and night forever and ever.
It seems pretty direct.
The Greek is astus aishanes tunaishun. It's the strongest phrasing for eternity you can get in the Greek language. It means unto the ages of the ages.
So it sounds pretty unambiguous, day and night forever. It implies a perpetual state of conscious punishment.
It does. And the classical argument is that because the crime, sin, rebellion is against an infinite God, the punishment must therefore be infinite in duration.
Okay. But then you have the annihilationist view, or conditional immortality.
Right. They argue that words like destruction should be taken to mean, well, destruction. They look at verses all over the Bible that say the wicked will perish, be consumed, or be destroyed.
So they would say that fire burns things up until they're gone? That eternal fire refers to the fire that doesn't go out, not necessarily the fuel that burns forever.
Precisely. They argue that the second death, which is what the lake of fire is called, means the final end of life and consciousness. They would say the punishment is eternal, meaning the result is irreversible, you are gone forever. But the punishing, the actual act of feeling pain, isn't eternal. You cease to exist.
So it's the difference between a life sentence in maximum security versus the death penalty where the criminal is executed and is then gone.
That is the debate in a nutshell. And good, faithful, Bible-believing scholars fall on both sides of this. Some find the idea of eternal torment morally difficult to reconcile with a God of love. Others find the idea of annihilation insufficient to meet the demands of perfect justice.
It's a heavy, heavy question, but, and this is the crucial point for our deep dive, whether it is eternal conscious torment or total deletion from existence, the result for the cosmos is the same.
Which is?
The absolute removal of evil.
Precisely. Revelation 21 follows immediately. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and it says, He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more.
And that reality cannot exist if Satan is still present and active in any capacity.
It can't. The final verdict is that evil is quarantined or erased, so that good can flourish forever, completely unchecked.
It's the final fumigation of the universe. The infection is removed for good.
That's a vivid way to put it, but yes, the chronology ends with a completely clean slate.
So let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground. We started with the pride in the beginning, the cherub who wanted the throne. We moved to the legal defeat at the cross day.
Already.
We discussed the current restrained power, the binding of the strong man so the gospel can spread. We looked at the future brief release, the final terrible test of humanity, and finally, the lake of fire, the final quarantine.
It's a long arc, but it bends toward justice.
And that's really the takeaway, isn't it? This isn't just a horror story or a sci-fi timeline for nerds to debate. It's a story about justice.
It is. For anyone listening who has suffered injustice, who looks at the world and feels like evil is winning, Like the bad guys always get away with it, this entire chronology is a promise.
A promise of what?
It's a promise that the books will be balanced, there is a statute of limitations on evil, it has an expiration date.
That is a comforting thought. The not yet feels long, it feels painful. But the end is certain.
Absolutely. The already guarantees the not yet will finally come to an end.
This was a heavy deep dive, but I feel like we only scratched the surface. We want to know, did this change how you view the end times? Do you find comfort in that already not yet paradox?
Or does the idea of the release trouble you? Does the debate about hell challenge your view of God? It's a lot to process.
If you want to keep exploring these mysteries with us, make sure you subscribe. Share this with someone who loves a good theological debate. We'll see you in the next deep dive.
And I'll leave you with this one thought. The question isn't if evil will end. The chronology proves it will. The real question is where you will be standing when it does.
Thanks for listening.